diving in. The idea, the sort of nasty stuff that gets put around, the boat of the fisherman, Pat O'Donnell, wasn't it? Somehow he sunk his own boat. No, he didn't. This was done by Shell tugs to get him out of the way so they can lay their pipeline to rob this country of its resources. It's not quite clear how much we have, right? But somewhere in the region of 450 billion and 900 billion of natural resources lie off the coast of Ireland. Oil, for example, discovered just a number of weeks ago. All of that is being handed over to Shell and ExxonMobil on unbelievable terms. In Ireland, these two companies, and whoever else gets their hands on it, are allowed to write off all of their exploration costs going back 25 years. So you can imagine how their accountants are gathering all this, right? They will pay nothing in tax, virtually nothing in tax. Compare that to Norway, 78% tax on their profits in Norway. On top of that, royalties of 50%. On top of that, 50% state ownership, right? Or better still, Venezuela. Just tell them, get lost, go away. We don't need you. We're taking back our resources, and we give you a little bit if you give us some technological If you did that, right, there'd be no need for this stuff. No need, and this is the point. When they tell us next December, we have to, because we don't like doing it, we have to cut social welfare, but we have to do it. Whose rights are more important? The rights of the poor or the rights of these sharks, right? And I think we just have to tell them we're taking back our natural resources, and that's the end of the story. Hold on now. Okay. We need, on top of that, to redistribute the wealth. We're going to need wealth in this country. This country is a tax haven. It's a tax haven for the rich, and we have to stop it. Every single millionaire in Ireland, bar, I still haven't figured this one out, I'm waiting for the answer, bar, for some reason, Michael Leary, I don't know why he's not doing it, but every single one of them is a tax fugitive. Every one of them says, we don't live in Ireland for 183 days of the year, we're out of Ireland for 183 days a year, our partners, our children are in Ireland, we're not living here, and they do that because they don't want to pay a tax. We have to stop that immediately. We have to get rid of all the tax incentives on properties. I believe that, and I'm talking here about moving to a socialist society, obviously that's what the agenda is here. I don't think people should live on wages over 100,000, right? I really don't think so. Maybe it should be 80,000 and so on. If you're in an emergency, people who live on that level of luxury should be taxed at the rate of 17%. Okay, so we have to redistribute resources. We have to, if you like, understand that if we're going to get out of the crisis, it won't be because of private investment. So we have to have large-scale nationalisation. I think if there's any company who's making a profit, and if the workers say we're not having it, and we want to take that factory over, I think that factory should be nationalised. Like, for example, SR Technics should be nationalised. Waterford Crystal should have been nationalised. But if you're going to nationalise it, you're going to have to deal with reforming the public sector. Now, I just want to deal with that argument a little bit. What if we have a more higher public sector? Isn't that going to cause us most problems? I started my own college. I work in the public sector, right? And you can see the problems in microcosm. In UCD, there's about 3,000 staff in UCD. I find staff, they're not all, by the way, lecturers and well-paid people and so on. There's people who work in the restaurants, libraries and so on. The problem we have is that we've got a director of research who thinks he's so clever that he should be paid 400,000 a year. We've got a university president who thinks he's so brilliant that his leadership deserves a wage of 250,000 a year. And underneath him we have 10 more minions who think they should be paid over 200,000 a year, right? On top of that, I'm just using this as an example, it happens everywhere in the public sector. On top of that, they constantly think that there are really clever people called external consultants who, if they bring them in, they can use organisational dynamics to make us work more efficiently. And the biggest one is IBM, right? IBM has shifted from making computers into organisational dynamics. In other words, bullshit, right? And what that means is they're brought in to organise people, create a complete mess, and it takes about a year to recover from it. We don't need external consultants. Mary Harney, every week she was in office as a Minister for Health, right, that's not exaggerated, every week and a half she brought in an external consultant to run the health service, right? Every week and a half she had a new external consultant coming in. PR companies. So if you want to reform the public sector, you get rid of this stuff, right? Nobody should be paid over 100,000 in the public sector. We should eliminate all this stuff, and crucially, the people who work in the public sector, the workers, the people who actually want to actually work and want to be of service to the public, their energy should be unleashed through forms of democratic control. We need to build a real knowledge economy, right? And rather than the rhetoric at the moment, we shouldn't have university fees. I believe, for example, that people talk about second chance learning. Irish workers, particularly older, middle-aged Irish workers, have had a very hard time in school and an education system that often discriminates against people. I think that workers should be able to build up study credits. If you work for so many years, you should have a right to have 6 months study credit, accumulate it, use that to go off and get access to free education. It was won by Italian workers for a brief period in the early 70s after the Red years in Italy. We should do that. We should invest in science labs. We should get rid of the rules of intellectual property. Rules of intellectual property are destroying the progress of science. Because a scientist thinks, I own knowledge, I mustn't share it, I can make a profit from it. And the basis of science is in fact testing knowledge and putting it into the public domain. So I think these are the measures that will bring about a real knowledge economy. If I can misprint, or maybe a bit of aspiration, it should be 35-hour week. In the last great recession in Ireland, the Fianna Fáil party produced a leaflet which had a quote from the Fine Gael Minister of Finance, I think it was, McGettigan, which said, people may have to starve in this country or emigrate. Fine Gael. And then they counterposed that to a quote from Eamon de Valera, which says, the people have a right to work, the state must provide every man with a job if he wants it. Okay? De Valera was a sexist, he was a conservative, and so on, we know that. Delete every man and say every person has a right to work. The state should guarantee a right to work. And it can do that by, for example, cutting the working week to 35 hours, sharing the work. It can do that by not allowing firms, passing a law that any firm that makes a profit cannot declare mass redundancies. It can build a social economy to ensure that what's not valued as real economy, caring for the elderly, doing community work, all this becomes part of a real economy and honoured and respected. We have to protect pensions, right? There is a pension time bomb in this country, and the reason why it's happened is because the pensions of workers have been put into, first of all, into hedge funds. A lot of pensions are put into hedge funds. And secondly, a disproportionate amount of the pensions of Irish workers have been placed on the Irish Stock Exchange in the shares of the banks. And as a result, 23 billion has been wiped off the pensions of Irish workers. Real serious problem down the line. I think we have to increase social welfare pension, the basic social welfare pension, to 50% of the average wage. We have to force employers to contribute, and we have to ban workers' pension funds from being involved in speculation. They should be put into socially useful work that provides jobs and dynamism to our economy. And lastly, in terms of what's left of capitalism, or rather individual firms, and I think that we have to nationalise wholesale. You also have to have, instead of light regulation, you have to have heavy regulation in any society. And the way I put it is this. In Ireland at the moment, regulation happens by putting people from the corporate world onto the bodies that control our lives. The HSE, for example, is the most important agency in Ireland, right? It is completely stuffed full of corporate heads, right? Liam Downey, the chair, is the former director of Becton Dickinson, member of the Council of IBEC. They've recently put on, the head of Century Radio. They used to have on it the head of Smurfit Ireland, a man called Joe Macri. These are the people running our health services. We should change that and put on people from trade union and community organisations. We should have a 5-year period before anybody can go from a regulatory agency to work for any of the people who are regulating. We should honour whistleblowers, right? If you are in the health service and you blow the whistle on the scams that management is up to, your job you can be sacked. We should instead honour that. And finally, to wind up, we should have proper health and safety measures. Okay, just to finish then, I think that what we need in this country is a radical change. We can only get that if we get people on the streets, and the proposals I'm making here are part of the process of trying to get people moving and bringing